Hey, my creative friends. My name is Shannon from shannonstudio.com. And we are here to talk about a creative life and a little bit about Sweden and anything else we want to on day 331 in a row. Um, so today, today was 86 out today. 86, a little warmish there. My arms got sunburned in as I was riding the bike today. Today I made like almost 10,000 steps and rode 8 miles. Yay. So what are we going to talk tonight about? Oh, I know. We're going to talk about, because I did this little thing. I just did this little thing. My grandmother would often say, and I think of her, she would often say, boyfriend, hi boyfriend, bring them on camera. You know what? I could bring you on camera, boyfriend. Did you know that? I didn't know that. It's the first time it's popped up. It says I can wave. I waved at you. So that's interesting. Bring him on camera. Wouldn't you like that? No, you wouldn't. Okay, my grandmother used to say something, and I think of her often. So this must be a new thing. I'm just gonna we're live. We can do this. I'm gonna just do a new thing here. I've been doing videos for, like I said, 331. This is the first time I have seen when your names pop up that right underneath your name it says bring them on camera. And then it has a little wave sign. So that's interesting. I didn't know you could do that. Did anybody else know you could do that? Boyfriend says nope. Nope, he doesn't want to be on camera. I know that. He did a Valentine's Day one with me, and that was fun. And boyfriend, I'm going to invite you to come on for our anniversary, end of July. So just throwing that invitation out. So I think of my grandmother. So she would say a phrase, and I went and bought this beach ball and put it on there. She would say to us, when there was different conversations and different things going on, she goes, well, just catch that guilt ball. Go ahead and catch that guilt ball. Why don't you catch that guilt ball? And so it's always stuck with me, this idea of the guilt ball. And I just got a $2 ball and wrote it on there because I just thought it would be fun, a little visual. But also so you could get that visual, because to catch, the idea is somebody's throwing a guilt ball at you and then you have to catch it. And yet you don't have to catch it. So that's the whole point of, I think, that she was trying to make. I never sat down and asked her, what do you mean by that? But in the context of what she was talking about, it was always that feeling. Now, it wasn't necessarily somebody else throwing the guilt ball at them. It was sometimes them throwing the guilt ball at themselves. And I'll explain more later about that. But, so just remember this guilt ball. My grandma would say, go ahead and catch the guilt ball. Okay, so she would say that. There it goes. So it made me think, so guilt is a huge topic. And of course, in 15, 20 minutes, we're not going to cover everything. But there's just a few things I wanted to talk about. But first, the thing I learned today was Guy Winch, and I read several articles, and I realized they were all from him. And he also has a book, Emotional First Aid. I think it's Emotional First Aid. So the comments I'm making, the quotes today, are from him. So he says, we experience 5 hours of guilty feelings a week. 5 hours. Feeling mildly or moderately guilty. I'm like, 5 hours? Really? Wow. So the idea of guilt is it's a real thing in our lives. It's a real thing. And so first off, there's 2 veins I'm going to go in here. And the first vein is I think, having a guilt trip, somebody giving you a guilt trip. And a guilt trip is when somebody is trying to manipulate you. It's a manipulation tactic. They're trying to manipulate you to feel badly about something so that it is an incentive to you to do something they want you to do, to get you to think or say or act or something the way they think you should. And they basically want to control your behavior. Now, does that not sound like a parent? Because parents want to control behavior of their children. So it's going to come up. And that's what he says. He says, a lot of the times the relationships, our relationships just, that's what happens in it. We are about controlling our kids' behavior, teaching them things so that they control their behavior. And so there's this little, thread, and we could talk about that another day, where we do control their behavior, but at some point we want them to control their own. And kids can do that to each other. Hey, Tamara. Kids can manipulate and give guilt trips to parents. Friends do it to friends. I mean, if you're in any kind of relationship, that can happen in relationships. Now, Dr. Guy Winch says, guilt trips frequently induce not just strong feelings of guilt, so it happens that we can make people feel guilty, but equally strong feelings of resentment toward the manipulator. So when you're trying to get that person to do what you want to do, or you are reversed, then you can feel guilty, but you can also feel resentful. And the thing is that how come we just all don't hate each other in our families? Because we do things to each other all the time. It's because the totality of the relationship matters. So if all you're doing is doing guilt trips, yeah, you're going to have a total resentment, total, distancing of the relationship that you want to keep. There has to be strong feelings of caring and affection, and there has to be love in the family and in your relationship with whoever this is on a regular basis for you to get a pass on that manipulating or giving them that guilt trip. So let me just read what he says. Mild as the poisonous effects of most guilt trips are, over the long term, their toxicity can build and cause significant strains and emotional distance. So that it can, no doubt. But there's a lot that can be, what's the word? Like, put in the context, in the context of the relationship. So let me see. Okay, then we go to guilt's primary function. And another time, if somebody's giving you a guilt trip, sometimes what they're saying, there's a thread of truth to it. And this is where I wanted to kind of, I think a lot of women fall into. I think a lot of women, because there's a thread of truth in it, that thread is like what we grab hold of. So, Dr. Guy Winch says, guilt's primary function is to signal to us we've done or are about to do something that violates our personal standards. So a lot of times it's just little comments like, you never go to any of my games, you haven't spent any quality time with me, and you say I'm important, that kind of thing. Just little comments meant to make you feel guilty, so you'll do what the person wants. And there can be truth to that. There can be truth to what's happening. And so what happens though is we take that thread and we run with it. It's like we catch that guilt ball. We decide, oh yes. Okay, so my thought is that just because something's true doesn't necessarily equate that you should grab that guilt ball. So, for instance, if you never go to somebody's games, boyfriend puts on here, I could never cause you grief or guilt. I was not pointing the finger at anybody, boyfriend, anybody. And my kids never said you've never gone to any of my games, but I've heard similar types of things said and done. And some of these I tried to make so that it could be said by a child to a parent, a friend to a friend, or a parent to a child. So, because it happens in relationships. So, Where was I? Truth does not necessarily equate that you have to take and grab that guilt ball. So, here's an interesting thing, and this is where I think I hear women a lot of times land. Because what they do is they catch that guilt ball. So they've got this, the guilt trip's been thrown out and they catch it. And sometimes it's not even thrown by somebody else, it's thrown by themselves. And so here's what Guy Winch says. Guilt can make you self-punish. The Dobby Effect, a phenomenon named after the head-banging elf in the Harry Potter books, refers to a psychological tendency for people to employ self-punishment to ward off feelings of guilt. So that's where I think when you catch that guilt ball, and I think I never sat her down to ask her, but I think that's what my grandmother was doing. She was saying, well, catch that guilt ball. Some of the time she was saying that. Like, you're catching it just to beat yourself up. And so then, in fact, they've done research, and it says, in one study, students who were made to feel guilty were actually willing to give themselves electrical shocks to signal their remorse. We catch that guilt ball and we hold it and you know, tight and want to hurt ourselves with it. That's what I think my grandmother was trying to say by don't catch the guilt ball, or, you know, referring to go ahead, catch that guilt ball, you know, what's it going to do? Because we have, I mean, guilt can do several things to us, but that's one of them. And I have seen that over and over and over, that's, you know, where we want to hold it. And this is where, in my mind, creativity helps us. Because when you are creative and you become creative, you are learning how to use your mind fully. So you're learning how to think convergently and to think divergently. So you're actually like the playing back and forth. So your convergent mind is telling you you have some guilt because you did do something, or, you know, and it's just then the divergent thinking takes over, and it's you're feeling this angst and you're feeling like, oh yes. But then the convergent feeling can come back in and go, well, the facts are is I work 40 hours a week. I can't go to the games, or I do, you know, there's just some different things. So with the ability to use the divergent and the convergent thinking and go back and forth, you can start to release that guilt ball, to put everything in context. And also you can just like a beach ball. You've seen somebody, when it starts coming to them, they just bang it right away, quickly, easily. You can also do that. If you've learned how to think in different ways in using those abilities on a regular basis, you're going to have, like with divergent thinking, you're going to have other possibilities come into your head. And so you're thinking, no, I work 40 hours a week, but possibilities. Divergent thinking says, well, maybe they can videotape parts of the game so that when they come home later in the evening, you know, after dinner, we can sit down and I can spend 15 minutes watching some of the highlights. So that kind of thinking is generated when we do creative things, and it becomes a benefit to us. And sometimes what will happen is we will feel guilty and we'll self-punish ourselves about creativity. I can't spend time, or somebody else will throw that guilt ball at us or try to guilt trip us and say, you're spending too much time, or you're spending too much money, or you're spending too much of our resources, or you shouldn't be doing that, that's not important. And so they try to guilt trip, and it's in you. It's, if the guilt ball is coming to you, you have options. You do not have to catch it. You have options to get out of the way. Just thinking about boyfriend, about how you were throwing water balloons the other day and you were winging them at me. I didn't just stand there. I got out of the way. you can get out of the way, you can bounce it back, but you can have conversations is what I'm, what it boils down. You can have conversations about that. You can go ahead and say, the benefits I get from creativity will far outweigh whatever time or resource that you think is being wasted or unavailable to you or whatever. We will have to be more proactive in how we want our lives to be. Sometimes some of us, boyfriend says, say it isn't so, but it's on video, boyfriend, so. We have to be more proactive, I think this, about our lives. We have to determine what kind of life, what kind of mindset do I want to have? What kind of thinking processes do I want to use? And as much as I love the outcome, like the quilt or the painting or the little doodad or whatever I've made, I love doing that. What I have come to realize over time is the biggest benefit I get out of that is the thinking and using my brain and the ability to come up with possibilities that sometimes will say, no, you know what, that's not quite right thinking. Because I'm convergent and divergent. And I can use all of those neural pathways to come up with things that benefit and start to put out a little bit more truth in my mind. So I just, here's another quote. While guilt can be useful in small doses, unresolved guilt is like having a snooze alarm in your head that won't shut off. That's where I think some of us are, where we catch that guilt ball and we haven't put it down. And I say, put the guilt ball down. Find ways, it's not like you don't have divergent and convergent thinking right now. So use it. And then also get creative. It's going to help you in so many ways in your well-being that it's definitely something that you should pursue, that I know for me, it's helped me in numerous ways. So that's the tip for tonight. Don't catch that guilt ball. And I will be back tomorrow for 332. And remember, you have a creative heartbeat, so listen for it. And bye for now.